2025 is officially over, and there have been so many amazing games that released this year. Games like Ball X Pit, Blueprints, Ninja Gaiden 4, and so much more all released this year, and it felt like there was one new game every week that was just stunning. However, with the year over, we can now see which games were most played on the Steam Deck in 2025. So without further ado, let's go on and show you the top 20 games that were played on the Steam Deck by all of you in 2025. This is based on the official chart that Valve posts on their website, and we use it for the dates January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025. And right before we get into it, if you want to see more videos like this, hit that like and subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified as soon as our next video goes live. Now, let's get to the list. At number 20, we have Fallout 4. Now, despite it being around for quite some time, Fallout 4 has retained its spot on most of these most played lists. Compared to Bethesda's other big RPG series, The Elder Scrolls, I much preferred Fallout due to the sci-fi setting and the inclusion of guns, but there's a lot of mechanics and systems in there like the VAT system that are just really fun to play around with. I also enjoyed the story, especially in Fallout 3, and while Fallout 4 was not really on the same level as Fallout 3 for me, it was still a lot of fun to play. It's also a joy to play on the Steam Deck, though I wouldn't expect 60 frames per second without some major compromises to visuals. Still, set it to 30, bring the graphics up, and just enjoy. At number 19, we have The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. Now, The Binding of Isaac was one of my favorite games when it released, and a lot of its DNA can actually be traced to the roguelike genre. In fact, it's probably one of the first roguelikes I've ever played. It has a weird setting and world, but it just adds to the fun, weird experience where you play as this baby that's basically been thrown in a dungeon and you have to start using your tears to destroy monsters and enemies around you. There's a lot of different upgrades, characters you can unlock, and it's just really a wonderful experience I can happily recommend. And of course, it's a flawless experience on the Steam Deck and a worthy addition to your portable library, so if you're a fan of roguelikes and you haven't played this game, I highly recommend checking it out. At number 18, we have Dave the Diver, which is by far one of my favorite management games. In the daytime, you'll go diving for fish and gather materials, and at night you will come up, run a sushi shop, and make money using the materials you find. It's a fantastic loop with gorgeous pixel visuals and some very hilarious moments, and just perfectly worth all the time invested into it. It also has some fantastic content packs and DLC, getting collaborations with Godzilla, Dredge, and even Like a Dragon. And it's just an amazing game to play on the Steam Deck, running flawlessly at 60 frames per second the whole time with low battery drain, so I can wholeheartedly say, get this game if you have a Steam Deck. At number 17, we have The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which is the first of two incredible RPGs from developer CD Projekt Red on this list. CD Projekt Red is known for making these incredibly detailed open-world RPGs that just stun at every corner, and The Witcher 3 is no exception to that. There's an incredible storyline that continues from the first two games if you've played them, a multitude of quests, bounties, and more in a giant sprawling medieval-esque fantasy world, and you'll have to master swordplay and magic to combine and take down these giant monsters. It's really just an incredible game, and well worth playing through even if you haven't played the first two games, or if you've already played the game and just want to try it on the go. The game itself has a dedicated Steam Deck graphical preset that runs quite well as well, and can hit 60 frames per second more often than I would expect for a large open world RPG like this. So I think it's definitely worth checking out. At number 16, we have Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire is probably the most iconic deck building roguelike that's out right now, and is still the first one that comes to my mind whenever I think of deck building roguelikes. In my mind, it really started the subgenre. You're going to go through dungeons and build out a deck of cards which can range from different attacks, spells, and passive bonuses to make yourself stronger to get through progressively harder enemies. It's got a great balance and never feels too difficult, but it does take skill to get through. And on top of that, it runs flawlessly on the Steam Deck, hitting 60 frames per second with ease and low battery drain. At number 15, we have Brotato. Now, I love roguelikes and survivors games, and I appreciate them a lot, but Brotato is still the only one that I keep coming back to for more. You choose your potato character, all with different stats, and send them into wave-based auto combat, where you will get new weapons and passive bonuses. These can be upgraded as you level up and gather new equipment, making yourself stronger and stronger in the process. You're also going to be able to combine weapons to make them stronger, as well as upgrade your stats as you continually level up. It is difficult not to say this game is better than most roguelikes out there, and honestly, it's probably my favorite. It's also incredible to play on the Steam Deck with 60 or 90 frames per second, your choice, and very low battery drain, so I'd say it's a perfect experience on the go. At number 14, we have the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition. Now, I know that said that Fallout 4 has been around for quite some time, but Skyrim has been around even longer, and it's still relevant today. It continually gets re-releases, but it's the modding community that keeps this dark fantasy RPG alive. It's a great game, especially when those mods get involved, and is a treat to play. Now, for whatever reason, the game recently got downgraded to the unsupported badge from Valve, but it still plays like a charm. At its default settings, it hits 60 frames per second, and you can even get above 30 frames per second when at Ultra, which you need to use the Steam Deck =0 command launch option to actually change. So I'm not really sure why Valve brought the rating down, but I can confidently say that this is still great to play on the go. At number 13, we have Vampire Survivors, the legendary game that effectively started the entire Survivor series of games. This is a small $5 game, but this small $5 game was able to start a revolution. The game itself had major collaborations with franchises like Castlevania, Contra, and Among Us, and we see a lot of different games and series make some sort of Survivors version of their games. There's a lot of them, but this is the one that started it all. In case you don't know about the game, you're basically trying to survive as long as you can, constantly killing enemies and picking up experience points, which you use to get new weapons or passive bonuses, make them stronger, evolve them together, and just try to survive. Vampire Survivors can get really hectic as well, which is a ton of fun. Now, Vampire Survivors is a very dangerous game, and I wouldn't play it if you value your free time, but it runs perfectly on the Steam Deck at 60 frames per second, but there may be some drops here and there when there are too many effects on the screen, but regardless, it's still very playable. At number 12, we have Elden Ring. Now, Elden Ring is known as the greatest Souls-like for a very good reason. From Software expanded on their Dark Souls gameplay, taking the action RPG successfully into an open world that is hard not to love, even if you're not a fan of the difficulty. It still retains that difficult gameplay that defined it, and the bosses just feel bigger than life, but the entirety of the game actually just feels bigger than anything From Software has released up to this point. Despite that size, it runs really well on the Steam Deck, getting around 40 frames per second until you get to the Erd Tree expansion, which is more demanding and will need like a 30 frames per second lock. Still, it should be relatively playable on the go. At number 11, we have Hogwarts Legacy. While I had my reservations initially, Hogwarts Legacy is a fantastic open-world RPG worth playing. You take control of your own created character in a wizardry RPG where you'll fight monsters, learn spells, and go to school at Hogwarts while traveling through the Harry Potter universe. It's way more fun than I initially thought, and it's well worth that time investment, especially when it's only $6 on Steam during the Steam Winter Sale. Now, experience on the Steam Deck has differed, but from my experience, it hasn't been that great on the Steam Deck. It can stick to 30 frames per second or above most of the time, but I have gotten a lot of drops when trying to play. Still, I've seen a lot of people actually be able to play it effectively, so I would say that your experience is probably going to be better than mine. At number 10, we have Red Dead Redemption 2, which, even though the game has been out for a little bit and I have played it on the Steam Deck, it still surprises me how playable it actually is on the Steam Deck. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a massive open-world RPG made by GTA dev Rockstar and still has the same excellent quality that defined Grand Theft Auto. It has an incredible story, fantastic animations, detailed simulations, and hilarious physics that keep on making me come back for more. As for performance on the Steam Deck, it actually sticks to 60 frames per second, a lot more than I expected. There are still going to be some areas and spots that will dip, but I saw it mostly stick to 60 and above, so I would consider this awesome to play on the go. At number 9, we have Hades. Now, even though a sequel has been released, Hades still shines as one of the best roguelikes out there. Its top-down action combat is tight, the voice acting and artwork are on point, the story is engaging, and the progression systems are just fantastic. Now, I know Hades 2 is out, but I would still say Hades 1 is a worthwhile purchase. It's also a wonderful game for the Steam Deck, and another perfect fit to play on the go. At number 8, we have Megabonk. This is one of my favorite games that was released this year, and it's still very hard for me to put down. Megabonk combines gameplay elements from Risk of Rain 2 and Vampire Survivors to create this weird, addictive roguelike that feels right at home in my portable library. There's a good chunk of content to play through, tons of weird characters to unlock, a multitude of weapons and items that you can start finding, and it just feels great to play on the go. It's also perfectly playable on the deck, 60 frames per second will be easy to hit with low battery drain, and I can't recommend getting it enough. And as one of the only 2 games on this list that released this year, I highly recommend checking it out. At number 7, we have Cyberpunk 2077. This is the second CD Projekt Red RPG on this list, and it is phenomenal. The team is fantastic at making these large-scale open-world RPGs, and they hit it right out of the park with this one. It's exactly what I would want from a futuristic sci-fi world. Engaging combat, beautiful neon light-filled settings, fast-paced vehicles with incredible design, and a wonderful story that I still look back to fondly. Now, even though it is a giant large-scale RPG, it runs quite well on the Steam Deck. I wouldn't try to run it above 30 frames per second for the most stable experience, but it's still very playable, and I had a blast playing through it. At number 6, we have Hollow Knight. Now, Hollow Knight still reigns as one of the best Metroidvanias to have ever released, and despite it being a bit old, it still holds up today. The gorgeous atmosphere, fantastic level design, and wonderful combat all mix together really well to create such an engaging experience. It's still a ton of fun to play, and I can happily recommend it to anybody who enjoys these types of games. And as expected, it just runs perfectly on the Steam Deck. It really feels perfect for portable play. At number 5, we have the follow-up to Hollow Knight Silksong. This is the second of 2 games that are on this list that were actually released this year, and as much as I think there are others that should be here as well, Hollow Knight Silksong definitely deserves a spot on the list. The game follows one of the best Metroidvanias to have ever been released, and in the 3 months it has been out, it has dominated the charts. It takes the lessons that it learned from Hollow Knight and cranks them up with a new character that feels completely different to play as, while retaining the charm it always had. It also runs flawlessly on the Steam Deck, so you should experience no issues when trying to play this on the go. At number 4, we have Baldur's Gate 3. Personally, I love developer Larian Studios and the tactical story-driven RPGs they create. Baldur's Gate 3 is no exception. The game is just fantastic. It's filled with tons of content, choices that affect the story, and a wonderful combat system that takes thought and feels rewarding. It's probably one of the most detailed and freeform RPGs that's out right now, and I would not pass up a chance to play it. Ever since it got Linux support directly, the game has been great to play through on the Steam Deck. It would still be best at a 30 frames per second lock, but it looks better and should be more stable in Act 3, where it had a lot of issues before. At number 3, we have Hades 2. Now, I talked about Hades already, and this is the follow-up to it. The game actually hit 1.0 this year, and ever since then, it has been consistently stuck to the top of the charts for the Steam Deck. This is a fantastic game, taking the addictive elements from that first game, expanding on them, and giving a new story and characters. We still have the fantastic voice acting and artwork that's associated with the first game, but it's just all cranked up even further. This is a must-have game if you're a fan of roguelikes, if you're a fan of developer Supergiant Games, or if you're a fan of Hades 1. And just like its predecessor, it is a great experience on the Steam Deck. It also runs at 90 frames per second with ease, with relatively low battery drain, so it's a perfect fit for portable play. At number 2, we have Balatro. When Balatro was released, I was pretty blown away by it. Taking poker and turning it into a roguelike format is such an outlandish idea that works flawlessly. This was my 2024 Game of the Year, and while I'm sad it didn't win at the Game Awards, it was just so creative, addictive, and hard to put down that I really can't stop playing it. Using different poker hands to build up your score to win each round, having jokers that can multiply your score, and ways to upgrade your hands is such a fantastic idea, and it just never gets old. And yep, just like a lot of the other games in this list, it's perfect to play on the Steam Deck, easily hitting 60 frames per second and above with low battery drain, so there should be no issue playing this on the go. And finally, at the number 1 spot, we have Stardew Valley. This game is iconic. It has been around for almost 10 years at this point, which is kind of crazy to see, but it's still so popular. This is one of the best farming simulators out there, combining cozy gameplay and enjoyable farming with a great cast of characters to meet, fall in love with, and marry. Add in dungeon hunting, intriguing quests, and a storyline that can head into pretty weird territory, and we have a wonderful game that's perfect for the deck. And with it being so old and it having already been optimized for phones and the Switch, it kind of goes without saying that the game is just flawless on the Steam Deck as well. And those are the 20 most played games on the Steam Deck throughout the entirety of 2025. Now, I really do wish there were more games that were released in 2025 on this list, but I'm still very happy to see Megabonk and Silksong there, as well as a lot of classics that even I still go back to play on the deck. Still, I'm disappointed games like Balatro aren't there, but maybe in 2026. Still, 2025 was an amazing year for Steam Deck users, where we saw tons of newly released games that are running on the Steam Deck, and while it is starting to show some age with its bigger games, we are getting more patches that actually make it more playable on the deck, like Doom the Dark Ages and Indiana Jones. So from my point of view, I'm very optimistic that the years following are still going to be supporting the Steam Deck with their newly released games, and of course, we're going to be on the front lines to find out how they're running and whether they're worth playing on the go. And I just want to close out this video by saying thank you guys so much for your support. Seriously, it means so much to all of us here at Steam Deck HQ. We're an independent outlet and we work really hard to bring the content that we do, so thank you guys so much for your support, for reading our articles, for liking our videos, for subscribing to us on our social media, and just being here with us. We have a lot of plans for 2026 and beyond, so look out what's going to be coming from us since we think this is going to be a very big year for the website. Now again, thank you guys for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that like and subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified as soon as our next video goes live. And a huge thank you to our patrons. You guys are awesome. See you next time.